Why is packaging sustainability important?
It's important for our future. It's important for our children's children, children's children. Let's make it better than we found it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's segment right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. I am your host and curator, Megan Young Gamble. You can follow me on all my social medias. All the information is down in the show notes for you. But it's not about me, it is about my powerhouse guest that I have the honor and privilege to speak with. So let me just say this. If you have not followed us, if you have not hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do so. And also at the end of this interview, make sure you do give us some 5-star ratings and reviews because the conversation we're going to have with today's powerhouse guest, you're going to want to leave a review. Okay. And so, guys, today's featured powerhouse guest is Michael Houston. Not Whitney Houston. Okay. He's male, but Michael Houston and not related. And so, Michael Houston is an accomplished executive with over 20 years of experience in packaging engineering and sustainability. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Tuskegee University, also referenced as Skegee, and he's also specialized in material science and holds several patents. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say he has been focusing on packaging sustainability over the course of his tenure and his career, and he is on a mission to achieving zero waste and a zero carbon future, which we're going to get into for today's episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Houston, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate you introducing that. That's a very strong intro, so I got to make sure I follow that. But let you know,
Hey.
Whitney Houston's brother is Michael Houston. So whenever someone was trying to Google me, that will pop up. So it was actually a good thing because it deflected from figuring out who I was. I try to be as incognito on social and just do any Google searches, though. But yeah,
Well, listen, that
glad to
means
be
that you
here.
could be ranking to the top of Google and SEO too, like Michael Houston, Michael Houston. So y'all see where it's at, see where it's at, but
There
didn't
you
know
go.
that coming onto the show. So good to know.
Exactly.
So, Michael, I gave you a strong intro, but nobody can speak about themselves like you can. So, share a little bit about yourself and your journey from mechanical engineering to material science to the infamous world of packaging.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to go way back. And I'm gonna
Okay.
actually go back to my childhood in Charlie Brown Airport. So I
Mm.
used to fly airplanes. I fly, I used to, it was called ACE, Aviation Career Enrichment. It was for African Americans who wanted to learn how to be aviators. So growing up, my
Mm.
father was in the military, and I literally thought I was going to be a pilot. That was my dream. I used to go to air shows with my father, and my father was in the Navy. So it was just natural to connect the two. So as I progressed from middle school, high school, taking, flight classes and learning about the whole dynamics and the fluid dynamics of air. And I literally thought this was going to happen. And I found out going into my junior year that my eyesight was in 2020, so I couldn't be a pilot. I actually tried to enlist into the Army early on my senior year, thinking that could happen. And once I learned that I could not be a pilot, I was like, well, you know what? I know there's a really good aerospace engineering program at Tuskegee University. So I decided to go the route of becoming an aerospace engineer, graduated, went there. I think I did a summer enrichment program and absolutely fell in love with the university, what it stood for. Did aerospace my freshman year. The end of my freshman year, I realized we did a career fair. And if I wanted to be an engineer in aerospace, I had to work for either Boeing or Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, et cetera. But I saw that if you're a mechanical engineer, you can work a little bit anywhere. You can work for consumer packaging good companies. So fast forward, I switched my major to mechanical engineering while I was at Tuskegee, and I landed an internship, but it was really the following year, which was my sophomore year. I landed it with Procter and Gamble, working out of the plant. And after I had a successful internship, they invite you back. And the beautiful thing about Procter and Gamble, they're a promote from within company, so they want you to experience all sides of the business. And the person I interviewed with going into my junior year, he was a packaging engineer from Michigan State, and he was asking me about my background. So remember, I told you I did aerospace my freshman year. So I was able to get
Mhm.
a work study program supporting a Boeing project. So I had to
Wow.
use some testing equipment to test modulus elasticity, which is stress over strain. So I had to use the same equipment that packaging engineers were using. I had to test composite materials to understand certain forces with composite materials. So when I interviewed with the packaging engineer, not knowing he was a packaging engineer, he just worked in R&D. He was like, you
Yeah.
know what? You know a lot about testing. We could utilize someone like you. And that literally is what propelled my career into packaging. So all I know,
Mm.
basically going from, my junior and graduating, is packaging. And that's what actually got me into the world of packaging. So after I graduated 2004, worked for Procter and Gamble in the snacks and beverage division. Now, when you said multiple patents, I have to be clear, it's actually one patent. I got one patent, and it's in thermoforming technologies.
Okay.
But I got that working in snacks and beverage. So I started off in Folgers Coffee, so I had to learn about blow molding, injection molding, screen printing, heat transfer labels,
Wow.
the whole gamut. And the thing is, with Procter and Gamble, which I absolutely appreciated, they had, when you had your development plan, 10% of your time is through learning. Again, they're a company that's to promote from within, so it's in their best interest to develop their employees, because the CEO started off just like anyone else as an intern. So they
Yeah.
would put me in these classes to learn more about packaging technologies. They would encourage us to go to the manufacturers, learn about, all the different technologies I just kind of mentioned. Did that for a couple of years. Then I went over to another brand, Pringles. Pringles, that's where I did I did a lot of stuff at Pringles. But what was unique about Pringles in the Procter and Gamble organization, they had you focus on one technology and one technology
Mm.
only. So my technology was thermoforming. And it was a very unsexy technology, but they didn't teach you about films and everything else. So you had to be somewhat a subject matter expert. And then when it came to developing any new innovations, you had to tap to other SMEs. But I realized, packaging was my passion, but I got burnt out on Cincinnati, not because of the work. It was just too many harsh winters. I grew up in Georgia, lived in
Yeah.
Marietta. Shout out to ATL, because you take the country
Yeah.
out of the individual. But I moved to LA, and I'm still country to a degree. But I left, moved to Atlanta. Yeah, moved to Atlanta, Georgia, working for Clorox. And this is actually what got me into the world of sustainability. Worked for Clorox in an organization called Supply Chain Assurance, but they needed packaging engineers to identify these solutions. And the whole role of this position was to identify gaps and waste within the manufacturing process. For the whole buzzword of sustainability and going green, it was about how can you
Yeah.
remove waste, excess corrugate, too heavy, down weighting bottles by, modifying the Pearson profile of a blow molded bottle, finding more cost effective resins versus another resin, coming up with secondary sources, so on and so forth. So we had to develop our own projects. We worked under a particular franchise of brands, and it was our role to go into the plant, talk with R&D, figure out how can we remove waste. Because every organization, every company is for profit. It's all about how do I improve my product gross margins and eventually ladder that up to company gross profit margins. So we were actually tied to bottom line, and it really advocated for individuals with these type of capabilities, I think, further on in my career. So I worked there for a few years. I left, moved to LA, met my wife actually in Atlanta at the Waffle House. So shout out to Atlanta.
And gotta love waffles.
Waffle House. Yep. In particular, the one in Buckhead across the street from Tongue and Groove. That's where we met,
What?
having breakfast. That's all I want to say. I'm not going to say what time, but we were having breakfast. Met her, and then basically our relationship grew. 3 years later, it's like, all right, it's time to move to LA. That's where she grew up. She lived in Santa Monica. So I landed a job with Johnson and Johnson. And this was their very first brand that was really into sustainability, and it was called Neutrogena Naturals. It was a category where they're trying to implement recycled resins, and really touch like the formulation as well. And at the time, this is like 2011, 2012, most companies were still new to using letters of no objection PCR resins that had been FDA quote unquote approved. So we had to do all these different tests to show that there wouldn't be any type of like migration from the PCR resin into the formula. So we were able to do full-on stability testing. And the success we had from that, we are able to start pushing those PCR resins. Shout out to KW resins, the very first ones,
Yeah.
and Eco Prime. If anyone knows about high density polyethylene PCRs, they have one of the best, in my opinion, that I've qualified and implemented across all categories. So to be part of the initial development and belief that you can start incorporating more recycled resins that don't conflict with your brand identity is always an awesome thing. So again, I'm going to skip some bit because again, it's 20 years. That's a lot, and I don't want to be that old guy that's like, man, back in '93 I did this, and then 2000. So I'm going to skip some stuff. So J&J had an amazing time there, but they decided they need to move to R&D to Skillman, New Jersey. I decided we just moved to LA, so we stayed. I went to Beachbody, where I worked in the supplement category, flexible films, injection molded PET bottles, labels, etc. Left there, then went over to Unilever under their prestige brand called Murad. And I was able to do some sustainability things, but it wasn't high in mind. But whenever we had opportunities, that's why I'm a firm believer. If you are a packaging engineer, you should present many options to your business and obviously provide a strong technical rationale and reason to believe why you should go down a certain path. But to implement, but to be able to demonstrate the thought process of implementing PCR resins or just recycled materials or easily recyclable components, advocate on behalf of your product development team because you have product packaging compatibility. You have to
Yeah.
brainstorm how do you make the right decision that keeps the formula stable, gives it the longest shelf life possible, and can go into market successfully. So Unilever was definitely had a lot of passion behind that. And I actually look at some of their articles because they have an amazing chief sustainability officer. I don't know if it's impact or sustainability. And they have these ambitious goals like 2039 to be, basically zero carbon emissions, which, I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
So fast forward, left there, went to the Honest Company. So now these are like smaller brands now, but they all IPO'd. Honest Company and worked on Honest Beauty, where we implemented a whole bunch of like durable components. So when you talk about sustainability, it's about making decisions that has the minimum amount of impact on our environment, our earth, right? So it's not just using recycled resins. Is it using durable goods? Is it things that fit within a circular economy? And how do you communicate that to your consumers that advocate and believe in your products? So we're able to revamp their entire beauty business to have durable compacts. So you can pop out the pants, so you're not throwing away the whole compact. We leveraged 100% post-consumer recycled PET resins. We had a full-on communication campaign on how to manage your package at the end of life. And the thing is, a lot of people don't realize you can't claim anything's recyclable because it's really up to the material recovery facilities to determine, will their local municipality actually recycle that material? Because in some cases, some things get downcycled. I used to tell some of our engineers, glass is highly recyclable. It's infinitely recyclable, such as aluminum. But if you're in a municipality where the cost structure doesn't make sense for them to recycle because there's just not enough demand or it isn't generated, they could potentially downcycle it and put it into, concrete or, when they're paving out roads. So it's not necessarily always going to end up. So making any type of sustainability claims of recyclability, I always push brands to say, check with your local municipality, just like there's different police departments. Not all laws are the same. And the technologies are not all the same. Some could have vision systems, some may be manually, removed and separated. But did that, absolutely had a great time. That's where I built my relationship with APR, Association of Packaging Recyclers, who I would reach out to, and then they would advise on recommendations like size of components, like 2x2x2. So if anything smaller than that, and even though it is highly recyclable, but if it's too small, is this going to get mixed in with the glass and fines? I think that's what it's called. And now so you have to really look at the trade-offs and see what makes sense on the packaging front. Took that role, left that to go work for Ritual. Absolutely love that brand. They're in 100% post-consumer recycled PET plastic. They're working on a program that potentially, very similar to Seed, having a refill model, which I know they'll launch that eventually. How do you find ways to reduce your carbon footprint and hold on to durable goods? And now, most recently took on this consulting opportunity I felt like it was the right time. These are things that brands are asking for. You have environmental, social governments. These are now pillars and KPIs that all organizations are being asked to report on and to tie
Mhm.
back to the metrics of success and growth. You have packaging extended producer EPR programs. And how do you communicate that out? And how do you make it actionable throughout your entire organization that now everyone is being
Yeah.
held accountable to
Yeah.
report on? So I'm helping brands now identify one, packaging cost savings, and you can do cost savings and sustainability at the same time. And I found a unique way to do that through my 20 plus years of relationships I developed with packaging suppliers, brokers, resin suppliers, material suppliers, et cetera. So
Nice.
long answer to your question of like, how do I get in this space? But Tuskegee University, one, love of aviation, material science, and a passion for packaging, and obviously all the organization I work for who trusted in my leadership to help bring the organization to the next level.
I love it. And I appreciate you for being transparent and really giving us your Rolodex, so to speak, and your
Yeah.
portfolio of companies you've worked with from conglomerates all the way to startup brands. Because at the end of the day, we all have a journey, right? And how we met, ironically, was through LinkedIn. And when we met, we had some similarities. So you're from Atlanta, Marietta, Georgia. Marietta is in my backyard from where I live. I live in Atlanta, so we are ATLians. We're Southern to our core. I tell people I am a Southern girl to my core. We been country, like Beyonce says, Cowboy Carter. So we have a lot of symmetry and alignment. Like my husband went to Tuskegee, you went to Tuskegee. So one of your family members lives in Culver City. My sister-in-law lives in Culver City. Waffle House, staple. Guys, if you're listening, you've never been to a Waffle House, do yourself a favor, stop at a Waffle House. It does not matter what time of day. Sometimes it's better early in the mornings, but regardless of time of day, it is good. Go ahead and get you some Waffle House. It is the best good food fast spot that you can go to any time of day and get you some good Southern food. So, but you had to give context and share a lot of those things. And I think that's the beauty of our experience and our journeys is that we get to meet so many different people from various walks of life. How you thought you were going to be an aerospace engineer to recognizing when you went to do your internship at Procter and Gamble and the packaging engineer was like, you're doing a lot of the same testing in aerospace like we are in packaging testing. Come on over to this side. So there's so many people that are instrumental into our careers along the journey. Your wife is a big reason why you moved to LA and work with some of those notorious brands. So there's a reason for everything. But some of the things that you mentioned that is really profound, especially here in the packaging sustainability landscape, is minimal impact on the environment. And so, as part of that, we're also well, let me rewind. I want to ask you specifically in this world of sustainability, packaging sustainability, EPR, which we're going to get into a little bit, ESG, with a lot of corporate pillars, and you working over 20 years of experience with numerous brands. What is your definition of sustainability? That's the first part of the question.
Oh gosh, let me put it this way, and I mentioned it earlier. There isn't a clear definition. You can't go on, Google. It's multifaceted.
Mm,
But my definition, based off just understanding how our decisions as consumers impact our landfills, the way we interact with packaging, it is literally boiled down to making decisions that have the least environmental impact on our planet. Bottom line,
okay.
right? So you'll have some brands that stand behind, we're 100% durable packaging, right? So let me just give you like a number, for example. If I had a 12 fluid ounce aluminum bottle, we'll absolutely love that. There's brands that are celebrating that. Then you have a 12 ounce, say, PET bottle. The difference between the production of that one bottle can be a difference of roughly 70% more CO2 to produce the aluminum bottle than the PET bottle. If you just think about how much energy it takes to turn metal into molten metal to be able to form
Hmm.
it into something versus plastic, where if you just put plastic in your dishwasher, you can just a little bit of heat that's in there can cause it to deform, right? So when you think about choosing componentry, should it be based off it being durable? Should it be based off of how much CO2 that it generates, right?
Hmm.
And those are the challenges. And there's always been this misnomer that plastic is evil. I don't think plastic is evil. I think when you design things to be single use, whether it's plastic or metal or glass, then that's the biggest travesty because we could make better decisions to design it to be a durable good. The same way that the milkman, you ever hear the joke like, oh, they ain't your dad, it's the milkman. Or,
Yeah.
but the milkman came and brought you a fresh glass. And I know this is not glass, but let's say it's glass, would bring it to your house and just create the circular economy. You would take the glass, you would drink it. And when you're done, you sit it in back in the front door. The milkman would
Mhm.
pick up that glass, bring it back to the shop, clean it, disinfect it, and fill it back up again. But we've
Mhm.
gotten so accustomed starting in 1950 with single-use packaging because it's so cost, enabling for organizations is to ship things with really cheap componentry. Now we've
Mhm.
enabled an economy and consumers to believe that single-use packaging is the solution, when in actuality it's creating a lot of excess waste that we would never have had over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I stand firm on is making decisions that have the least environmental impact, and it's up to the brand to use those materials responsibly and design it with a circular economy mindset versus single use, make, use, and destroy.
We and with us both having experience in the beauty world, single-use plastics is heavily utilized for every point of purchase display. There's single-use plastic everywhere. Every checkout counter that I go to, even some of the places that I go buy shoes at, I'm not gonna say where I'm going, but I'm telling on myself a little bit. But even there, like I am buying, having that impulse buying, okay? And a lot of things are in single-use plastics. And so you mentioned that all plastic is not evil, which I agree with. And sustainability, the definition of that means something different to every brand. I agree with. So when we're now seeing more single-use plastics come to market, or getting people to try before they buy the full size and promos and things of that sort, but we need to be more intentional about the materials and the minimal impact on the environment. Are there any alternative solutions you would recommend for brands and companies alike to consider instead of plastic? What are your thoughts?
All right. So on a peel back the onion, when it comes to like formulations in cosmetics, personal care, product to package compatibility is paramount. Like
Mhm.
I was working on a formula during my days at Unilever Murad, and isododecane will completely eat away plastic. The only way that
Sure
is
will.
stable, it would have to be stable in glass, right? So it really depends on the product. What is its intention? How does it supposed to be used? There's going to be some cases where it may have to be single use, but as long as you're communicating, you're trying to identify, are there any other alternatives in the future that could replace this? Could it
Mhm.
be compostable structures? And I'm a fan of looking at compostable materials, especially if it could be, backyard compostable versus, compostable at a manufacturing facility where you have to control certain environmental factors. But to answer the question, it's choosing components, it's doing full stability, identifying ways that you could set it up for end of life at the terminal outcome. So if it is, like for example, I go on Postmates and I order something, I get this large thermoform tray that takes up half of my garbage can or recycle
Yeah.
bin. Can I design a way that it allows it to take the smallest footprint at the end of use? Or could I pick a paper structure that allows it to be compostable? Because at the end of the day, no one's going to keep their thermoform tray unless it's a durable good like a Glad. And you're like, oh, I absolutely love this. I can't see throwing it away. So it's
Yeah.
it's really those trade-offs and having those crucial conversations. How do you meet the end consumer based off that need, and
Mhm.
evaluating every opportunity versus just taking the quick win of like, oh, I know this exists.
I think that's
Yeah.
something definitely to consider, and I'm about to peel back this onion even more. So, you're currently in LA, in Atlanta. You grew up here. So, even thinking about the end of life use of how to get products from consumers to the recycling facilities for it to get back into the circular economy, different infrastructure. How we recycle things here in Georgia, totally different than how you recycle things in California. So, I personally believe we still have a ways to go for us to all be on a quote unified front with like the material sorting facilities and the MRFs, et cetera. But thinking about those things and how we recycle, like, what are your thoughts? Like, I'm in Atlanta, you're in LA, recycling facilities, different, certain practices, not the same. Here in Atlanta, when you come home, sometimes we may have a recycling bin, sometimes we may not. We just all go in the trash. What should we do as consumers to be more intentional about the end of life use and getting to the recycling for centers and also the infrastructure that's needed?
That's a great question. First, we have to ask ourselves as consumers, is it a need or a want, right? If we can
Mhm.
eliminate the wants, we can minimize how much stuff we accumulate, right? So
Okay.
consumerism plays a big part. Working with APR, I'm a big fan of APR. They'll share like because they'll do the research and identify what are majority of MRFs able to. If you look at their different articles and recommendations, and if manufacturers can read those articles and understand, as I designed this package, does it fit within the ability of today's MRFs to be able to take it, sort it, and recycle it? And if the
Mhm.
answer is no, then we need a question. Is it required? So do I need a pump, or could it be a 2-inch diameter, not two, but 2-inch diameter tottle cap or something that could be sorted as a small material?
Yeah.
That's one. Then two, reaching out to your local municipality. And I forgot the name of the website. It'll come to me in a second, where you can literally put your zip code in and it will kick out who is the MRF. You can literally call that number and you can ask those crucial questions. Cleaning out your materials before putting in a recycling bin, sorting it, making sure it's not in a trash bag. If the dimensions are 2 inches by 2 inches for your particular municipality, then hey, can I choose components that are at least that size or larger so it can be reclaimed? But just educate yourself, understanding, supporting brands that use sustainability as a strong pillar for development and innovation. But if you get things that are over packaged and you're like, question it, but you know what, you're enabling it because you're buying products, and guess what? They believe that's what consumers want. So they'll continue to perpetuate that. But
Yeah.
if brands are intentional, listening to consumers, and consumers are discussing this with their wallet and voting with their wallet, then brands, I
Yep.
think, will follow suit. It also takes at the state level, local level, city level to enact laws to enable brands. So, for example, SB 54, and I may butcher this a
Mhm.
little bit, in California, it's regarding single use packaging. They want to eliminate single use packaging by 25%. They
Mhm.
want to have all packaging consist of at least 65% post consumer recycled materials. And they want 100% of the packaging at the end of life to either be compostable or recyclable. So when you
Yep.
have these mandates, brands have to follow suit. Consumers are pushing. And I think we all want this. We want to be able to hand our planet off to our children, our children's children, better than we found it. But at the rate we're going and the amount of garbage we can create, I find it really difficult to just ignore the problem, thinking someone else is going to figure it out.
Mhm. Yeah, and it really takes all of us to be part of the solution in transparency. So even with like SB 54, me and Julia Wilsey on a prior episode talking about the circular economy and like some of the local regulations that are coming out specifically to single-use plastics is key, but also how that always sets the precedence. California, Oregon, Washington, New York, other respective states. Here in Georgia, we a little bit slower to adapt certain things, just being honest. Like I'm a Southern girl to my core. I pay taxes here. I love the state, love the city. But we're a little bit slow to adopt some of those practices, like on a larger scale. So I think to your point, we all can be part of the solution to help with the environmental impact. It's going to take a lot from all of us, city, local, state, national, from consumers to brands to having those intentional conversation, being part of innovation, R&D, et cetera. It's really a full process. And guys, when I talk about, it takes all people to join us at the table, like my background, I really mean that because like Michael says, from his experience, from engineering to testing to finding cost saving opportunities in supply chain, we need all experts at the table, even designers, because designers, they are creative. We love them. It helps resonate with the products and the packaging for consumers. But if they putting all this shiny embellishment stuff on it that may not be deemed recyclable, they need to be part of the conversation, to know those things and the impact and what are alternative solutions. So just have to put that
Gotcha.
out there because we need all people at the table to help with making sure that we're having a minimum impact to the environment as much as
Wow.
possible.
You bring up a good point. Like you look at vacuum metallized, that was such a popular thing in the early 2000s and 90s.
Yeah.
Vacuumized components look like metal when in actuality it's in metal, it's still plastic underneath that.
Yeah.
So designing things to be manufacturable and recyclable. Because I know when I did engineering school, we took a class called DFMA, Design for Manufacturing Assembly. But if they had things
Mhm.
for industrial designers and engineers designed for manufacturing and recycling, man, that would be game changer. Maybe an opportunity. I
Absolutely.
can talk to Tuskegee, see if we can implement that.
Hey, look, I'll come down and check y'all
Yeah.
out because y'all have one of the top engineering programs, as well as like their
Yeah.
veterinary program and stuff too. But to that point, it's something that a lot of universities for our future leaders can really start to adopt and have professionals such as yourself and other powerhouses to come and educate students about this because there's a need. And the way the
Mhm.
workforce is going, we need more people coming to the world of packaging. We need more people to come into the workforce, just being honest. But those are the type of conversations that we have to make sure our future leaders are equipped and also us, because we're still in the workspace too, to make sure that we're
Oh,
helping to
exactly.
make more informed decisions for the outcome. So I love it. So we could talk about that onion all day, but we only have so much time. So we're gonna table some of it for today. But speaking of sustainability and all the packaging, we're seeing a lot of greenwashing in the space. And if you're not putting that claim, like check your local municipality of how to recycle the content or actual claims. In the beauty world, from me and you experience, we see a lot of claims that sometimes are good, sometimes are validated and substantiated, but sometimes are fluff too. So, as part of like greenwashing packaging, what are some critical elements you would recommend brands as a packaging sustainability consultant to really consider to truly deem package is sustainable?
First, foremost, quantify, put numbers behind it. If you're going to say
Okay.
this is more sustainable, in what way is it? Like, are you talking at CO2 emissions? Are you talking about accessibility for merch to be able to sort and recycle it? So if you're not using software such as Bluebird or Compass to quantify if you are making a decision like, hey, this is 70% less carbon intensive than another material, have the data to support that. Obviously, within any organization, you have a regulatory team. They're going to ask for that documentation. You have to substantiate. Greenwashing, there has to be consistency. You can't just be all over the place and say, hey, sustainability for me is like reusable. Oh, it's also, hey, I want to come from recycled sources. Oh, well, it needs to be a durable good. When you're consistent and you can have that as part of the brand architecture throughout, that will impact every function within your organization as they think through and they ideate a new innovation, right? So if I'm developing, I don't know, let's just make it up, a new ketchup bottle, right? Is the ketchup
Okay.
bottle, are we saying the ketchup bottle should be made out of glass because it could be used, that we'll actually take it and we'll clean it and we'll repurpose it and we'll give it back out again? Or is it, hey, we're
Yeah.
using 100% PCR recycled plastic. We know it does X% reduction and we know every MRF can actually take this package.
Mhm.
Or is it aluminum? So as you have all these decisions, you have to ask yourself as the brand owner, what is it that we are championing and how are we making decisions that will ladder up to decisions to reduce our carbon footprint, if that is the goal, which I think every brand should be pushing towards. You can have the
Okay.
most beautiful brand story, but if you're producing more carbon emissions, because every package you have is now made out of aluminum, and when you compare it to plastic, you're now, say 8x more CO2 intensive, you have to question. My intent is good, but is the
Mhm.
data supporting this direction?
I think that's profound.
And I was,
Yeah.
and I would say, lastly, for greenwashing, don't get caught up in following trendy habits at the moment. Stick to what are your core principles and champion that through everything that you do. Bottom line.
Y'all guys, y'all heard Michael, right? Say that louder for the people in the back, Michael. That last part, louder for the people in the back.
Stick to your core principles. If this is what you're standing on, be consistent and make sure that every brand owner, every person in the organization understand the decisions that are being made to support the end goal. In my opinion, it should be getting to, carbon neutrality. You don't want to put anything else out there than you have to, and you want to be able to collect everything that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, you heard it right here from Michael Houston. Okay, not Whitney Houston's brother, but the packaging sustainable consultant himself on the product and packaging powerhouse. Like, guys, understanding your core principles is so important because I am seeing so many brands come to market and we recognize it because we're in the industry. It's a lot of fluff, right? But it's appealing to the consumer and how to, peek and tap into their emotions. We get that. But at the end of the day, a lot of consumers, we're seeing 73% of consumers are now switching and buying products specifically on sustainability claims, ESG metrics, and also the impact it's making onto the planet and our environment. So, guys, fluff is pretty, it's butterflies and rainbows, but we want hard facts. We want the real deal. And so that's why we're peeling back the onion right here in my conversation with Michael, because these are the things that we should be talking about at the table. We're not sugarcoating anything. I believe, Michael, you're not a sugarcoat type of person. I'm not either. We're straight shooters and telling it like it is. And so, guys, be very intentional about the products that you're creating. Have these conversations during innovation if you're a brand and company alike. Bring on external people to be thought leaders and give other perspective. That's why you have consultants. We're both consultants in our own respective realms. And also think about your consumers. What are they asking for? What are they thinking about? What impact are they wanting to see on the environment? So I think those are all great points that you mentioned, Michael, right here on the show. So, guys, if y'all have not hit that, given a review, go ahead and do so now as you're listening. If you have not hit that follow and subscribe button, make sure you do so now because Michael is dropping the gems for you all. This is like a master class on packaging sustainability that you're hearing right here from Michael. And so, speaking of sustainability, and also your experience at Clorox, where you worked in the supply chain assurance department and you were really analyzing cost savings. So, if people and brands are considering sustainable packaging and then also cost saving opportunities, what should they do? What should they consider? And where would they even start?
Oh my gosh. First step, know what resins you want to touch. So if you're staying in the polymer space, know who the go-to person is for high density polyethylene, polypropylene, etc. And once you
Mhm.
know who those resin suppliers are that you want to utilize, figure out who is your manufacturer. So you can kind of do what in the supply chain called direct buy. You can partner that resin supplier with that blow molder, with that injection molder, and say, hey, let's test this out. We have to do a full-on commission qualification verification process to make sure that this resin is compatible with your blow molding equipment. So you're able to get to these really sustainable packages. Obviously, the colors could be slightly off-putting for some people, but it should be part of your brand identity. The goal is to eliminate waste. So that it would be my way of getting to these components is by understanding the entire supply chain, making the partnerships, and hopefully if you already have your blow molder, your packaging suppliers already have access to these materials. But look for letters of no objection from the FDA that they have been food grade approved. They usually have CFR 21 approval. So if it's okay to be ingested and be in direct contact, I will feel comfortable seeing the cosmetic space as well to have CFR 121 approval as well. It just gives you more confidence.
Well, guys, and I'm gonna put that resource down in the show notes for you all too, so you can research this because, like I said, Michael is dropping the gems. Okay, he's no singer, but you're gonna learn a fun fact about him. But he's dropping the gems right here with you all in reference of this. So you mentioned a little bit, Michael, about carbon neutral, and I know you're on a personal mission to achieve zero waste and a zero carbon future. What does this look like from your perspective?
Oh my gosh. I literally, if you go on my LinkedIn, I've been playing around of how can we tie this in a way that is easily digestible for the consumer who are not subject matter experts in the space that you and I are in, right? So
Okay.
we remember from my childhood, I was born in 1980. In 1976 Resource Conservation Recovery Act. It was the first time we heard the three R's of reduce, reuse, recycle. And then now, most recently, I would say past decade plus, we start hearing about the circular economy. For those who don't know, the circular economy is aimed at minimizing waste and making the most of our resources, right? So you make it, you use it as many times as possible, and at the end of life, you find a way to repurpose it and then put it back in the supply chain as your raw that can then turn back into something else. You turn your bottle
Mhm.
now into, I don't know, a vacuum cleaner, right? I'm making it up. So reduce, reuse, recycle. And how do we tie that back to the circular economy? So the first thing is reduce. That's the first part of the R, right? So at the brand level, everyone in the organization has to figure out, all right, I want to use, since I'm on vacuum cleaner, we want to launch a vacuum cleaner. How can we still achieve the aim of this goal of cleaning all floors in America by minimizing the amount of materials that's in there? Do I need to have this thing to be overcomplicated? Does it need to be a box in a box in a box?
Mhm.
So as you start thinking through, if you're the operations person, you're the brand person, start thinking, how can I provide the consumer experience and the delight that the consumer needs with the least amount of material possible? So if everyone is doing that throughout the entire company, then obviously
Yeah.
you will have something that has the lowest carbon opportunity versus something that is just overly built, that's unnecessarily needed. And then you have the reuse. Design your packaging, if possible, if you can make it a durable good. When someone sees something that feels lush, especially in the cosmetic space, we used to put weights in compacts to
Sure
make
did.
consumers feel like this is
This
heavy
is
and this
very
is
luxe.
beautiful.
Yep.
This is very out. That was a term, right? So if you design it, just like you have your Tupperware that you have from Glad or Ziploc, you don't throw it away. It sits underneath your cavity. You can't find the cap that goes with the bottom, but you know what? You keep it because you know it's a durable good.
Yeah.
Design it to be durable, to withstand many, many lives. And then the reuse piece, we just talked through that. The recovery at the end of life, when the thing is falling apart and you used it thousands of times, just like you think your favorite coffee mug, you don't throw it away, but at some point it may chip and you're like, hey, this ceramic cup, it's lived this life. I've drank coffee out of this thing for 10 years. You want to feel comfortable that when you put it in the recycling bin, will it end up and get recycled?
Yeah.
So brands need to start initiating that. Now, there's a small little piece I have in my diagram of compostable materials, and I'm definitely for compostable materials, but getting it set up to where consumers are educated to know how to manage compostable structures. So if it's going to be backyard compostable, make sure that consumers know how to manage that. Just throwing it out on the top of the soil, it's not going to go anywhere. You can put a chicken bone on top of the soil in a landfill, and it'll look like a chicken bone 10 years from now. So,
Yeah.
it needs to be in an anaerobic environment with high temperature, moisture, and pressure to be able to break down. So having that and then having manufacturers and the designers and everyone up front thinking through how can they develop these products from the beginning to have an endless loop over and over and over versus, the linear economy of make, use, and destroy.
Ooh wee. Like, that could be a whole masterclass in just itself for that one topic. Just get into thinking about carbon neutral to even your mission and other companies' mission too, because we're seeing retailers coming down the pipeline, et
Mhm.
cetera, aligning with zero waste and a zero carbon future. So, guys, if you have not followed Michael, his LinkedIn information is down in the show notes for you all. So go ahead and hit that follow button so you can learn all about the content that he actively posts on LinkedIn. And so speaking of the 3 R's, I think about, so this is dating us and we're 80s babies. So remember the school, not Fraggle Rocks, but the Schoolhouse
Fraggle Rock.
Rocks. Yes, where they start talking about the 3 R's: recycle, reduce, reuse. And so when I hear you think about your 3 R's, you talked about with achieving a zero waste and zero carbon emissions, carbon footprint. And thinking about that, and also knowing and learning that you're a founder yourself of Shower Pouch that considers the 3 R's. Share a little bit about how Shower Pouch came about as an entrepreneur from your wealth of experience, and also what made you consider utilizing the 3 R's for the product you created as well.
Awesome. I will answer that, but I want to go back to your previous question. So
Okay.
brands can be very altruistic when it comes to sustainability, but at the end of the day, we know it isn't free. Nothing is going to be free. And
Mhm.
brands have to invest and spend money. And sometimes that spending money may be taking a hit on margins, right? So you can say,
Mhm.
yeah, we want to be about this. And what I found brands, when I show them, oh, you want to be about, X, Y, and Z and sustainability, this is how much it's going to cost. Are you willing to lead and lead with your morals and that you know what and communicate it? But I found that consumers are willing to spend more money, and I forgot what the actual number was, with brands that stand behind sustainability and have their strong pillars of what that is for them than brands that don't. So there is ways
Mhm.
to implement it, but you have to invest. It's not going to come for free. You can't just expect your packaging engineer or your sourcing manager or procurement manager to
Yeah.
find these things and think it's not going to potentially cost more, right?
Well,
So going to your question go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, let's just pause on that moment right there, because to that point, especially some startups that I work with, everybody wants sustainable packaging, right? Okay. What does that mean for you? What does that look like? Do you have the capital to for sustainable packaging and the efforts that you're making as part of the brand? And some of them look at me like a deer in headlights. And I'm like, but it has to make sense. You can't say that you want something to be sustainable and you not invest the money behind it to really craft a true sustainable story, not just marketing fluff, but also actual data that you can quantify and be able to support that to tell the story from beginning to end and what you're doing as part of the incremental change of your sustainability metrics and your mission as a company. And they all look at me like I'm crazy. So I just had to say, wait a minute, we have to pause on that, because
Yeah.
you have to invest the money, to for these efforts. ESG,
Yeah.
everybody is really preaching and really stressing that right now. Retailers, we're seeing change in retailer requirements for packaging and products. We're now having
For a
to
claim.
update product labeling claims to states. Check your local recycling facilities. And that's part of MOCRA if you're in
Mhm.
beauty, with product labeling information to Fair Packaging and Label Act. So we're seeing a
Yeah.
lot of things simultaneously, guys. So if you are not investing in your brand and the packaging and then sustainable packaging, then what you doing? That's what I was just like, I
Yeah.
had to just pause and just state that real quick. So okay, back to shower pouch for you to talk about the
Yeah.
three R's. There you go.
Definitely, definitely. No, real quick, just to end it, brands want margin and creative solutions. They want to be altruistic, but again, it costs money. And sometimes it doesn't go hand in hand. And there's opportunities where I've been able to find cost-effective solutions because I can go directly to the manufacturer versus a broker. But
Mhm,
that's a whole nother conversation. But it is possible. You just got to be really creative. You got to have the experts in hand that can get you to
mhm.
that promised land, so to speak. So yeah, so shower pouch, man, it's the I don't want to say love child, but it's the conception of dealing with my father's challenges when he was in the military. He was stationed out in Afghanistan. And I spoke with him back like in 2012, and he was telling me how people stunk and the only thing that they used for baby wipes. I was working for Johnson and Johnson at the time, and I was like, oh, that's like a great opportunity to make something really cool. But I'm not a chemist, but I knew packaging, I knew non-wovens. And then fast forward, I met my business partner back in like 2014, and we talked about it while we were in Salt Lake City, and we decided to
Wow.
put our minds together to develop Shower Pouch, which is a 2 foot by 1 foot full body wet wipe that is heatable and reusable. So you think about the 3 R's and circular economy. Literally, we just did a trade show this past weekend up in Flagstaff, Arizona, and it is a large format. This is hard to see right here, but this is the packaging. Yeah. So we made it out of foil. Foil is it's a multi-laminate, but primarily foil. And we did that so we can tell a consumer who's out camping that they have a jet boil or a small pot of water, say they're leftover dirty water from washing dishes, boil that. Now you're able to heat that up and create that spa experience. You ever been on an airplane? They give you those hot towels. Exact
Mhm.
same thing. So there's something rejuvenating about having a warm cloth when you're out camping or hiking to clean yourself. And what we tell our consumers at the end of life, after you use it, because if you're doing a hike, you can, even after you wipe down, it actually deodorizes your clothes because the fragrance is strong enough to kind of mask that funk that may be carrying around with dirty clothes. But
Wow.
at the end of life, you can take this cloth. It's like I call it the ShamWow body wipes, and you can wash it many, many times. You say how many times? Like as many times as your dirty socks or underwear, right? And at the end of
Oh,
life, I educate consumers that you can take this cloth because it literally turns back into a towel, and you can turn the shower pouch 2.0 because all our ingredients are is just aloe, tea tree, witch hazel, willow bark, a little bit of menthol. And I said, these are things you can get at your local Whole Foods. So when
mhm.
people laugh when I tell them, I was like, we put sustainability over profitability. The idea is that you take this and this becomes your now go-to solution when you go out camping. And we launched
Really?
this back in 2016. We've been featured in Outside Magazine. We're a bestseller or Amazon Choice about a year ago. So it's doing really well. We're trying to scale the business, but nothing's going to take me away from my love and passion for packaging and innovation and sustainability and cost saving. So I'll continue to do this. My dad taught me growing up like you should always have a hustle, and this is something I'm passionate about. And I don't think I'll ever walk away, no matter how successful Shower Pouch becomes.
I love it, but it's also a testament to taking your wealth of experience from engineering to working at Procter& and Gamble, Johnson& and Johnson, Pringles, Folgers, who else you say, Clorox, Murad, and they're not even in the same order, so excuse the chronological
Yeah.
order. But with that, you have such a wealth of experience over the past 20 years that you've been able to take those learnings and apply it into a tangible product that is a solution for campers. I've been camping. I have to go to a campsite that has a shower. Okay, I'm just being
Yeah.
honest. That bold yet, but even just doing like
Yeah.
my hike trails with my husband or a friends group to military. Thank you to your dad for his service and the inspiration behind it too, because it is a product that is something very simple but yet effective, and also being intentional about the sustainability and incorporating that into a multi-layer laminate pouch that's heatable. Number one, that's a great benefit. To also having high tensile strength, non-woven materials with your
Mm.
towel, that's the 2 by 1. that can be reused and rewashed, just like any other product or article of clothing that you have, to also the different fragrances and the ingredients that you utilize. So you've thought about sustainability from products, the ingredients, to even how it's packaged to be reusable for part of the 3R. So I want to just give you your flowers and say kudos of taking
Thank
all
you,
of your
thank you, thank you,
experience
thank you.
into creating that product. So
I
I
have to
love
shout
it.
out my business partner. His name's Omar, fantastic chemist. If we both have a passion for sustainability, and for him, it's like Eastern medicine. And we were able to put our two minds together, and this we wouldn't have this love child without the two of us coming together and trying to one understanding what the consumer issue is and coming up with really creative ways to address it in a really small, compact body wipe. But we launched from there. We launched deodorant, hand sanitizers, disinfectant wipes. We call it our foot soap, which is basically a bath bomb. So we're looking to do a lot more stuff. The whole idea is we want to provide an arsenal of solutions for the outdoor venture. So think of your REI consumers.
Absolutely. Well, shout out to Omar. Okay. When I think of
Yeah.
Omar, I think of the show The Wire just by the name Omar. So if you don't know about the show The Wire, go look it up. Infamous, iconic show. But shout out to Omar, the chemist. Chemistry is my background. I have an undergrad in chemistry. And so I'm always shouting out my chemist as well. So shout out to Omar. I love it. So, Michael, great conversation. And we could continue to go on and on and on and on with our conversation, but our time is limited for today. And so, guys, if you've been rocking with us here on the show in the past, or if this is your first time, we always like to do a featured power round. So it's going to be 90 seconds displayed on the clock, asking about some fun, fast facts about our powerhouse guest. And so, to give you context of some of the fun facts that Michael has shared, which he highlighted some of them earlier in our conversation, is he used to fly airplanes at the Charlie Brown Airport. And also, he was a DJ in LA. So we're going to put some time on the clock and ask some specific questions about his fun facts and see how many he can answer in 90 seconds. So we put some time on the clock. Michael, you ready?
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying my best.
No, we're going with
Okay.
confidence. Okay. So
Okay, we're
so
gonna I'm
you
gonna do
ready? Okay.
it. Let's do it.
Okay,
Let's
let's
do it.
get it. You got this. 90 seconds on. So, since you used to fly airplanes and learned as a young child, what is your favorite aircraft to fly?
A Cessna 150 and a Comanche 180. I think Comanche 180 was a dual prop airplane. But yeah, that those are the planes that we practice on.
Okay, nice. So, what song sums up your flying experience?
1991, Fresh Prince of Bel Air, Summertime.
Summer, summer, summertime. Okay.
Yeah. DJ
So,
Jazzy Jeff, who is my role model in DJing. But yes.
oh, and perfect segue too. You as a DJ, what is your favorite genre of music to play?
All right. So my DJ name is DJ Epic Quest. And the whole idea Epic Quest is like taking through different generations, different times. And I would literally emulate what I would see with DJ Jazzy Jeff, his ability to take rock and hip hop and pop all together and just have people having fun. So I would say my favorite would just be definitely like the early 90s hip hop, definitely Outkast, anything that gets people wanting to dance.
Okay. Look, shout out to Outcast, ATLians, okay, because we're both ATLians. All right. And so, what is your preference, turntables or digital?
I did hybrid. I learned on Seratos, but I could play vinyls as well. But it just makes it easier to find instead of pulling crates out and pulling out individual records. But yeah, man, how are we doing on time? I feel like I'm going too
Man,
slow.
you're at time, but I'm gonna give you one more. Okay. And this one's gonna wrap
Okay.
up for today. So, why is packaging sustainability important?
It's important for our future. It's important for our children's children, children's children. Let's make it better than we found it.
Ooh-wee. Perfect way to end the day. I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from Powerhouse Michael Houston, not Whitney Houston's brother, but packaging sustainability consultant Michael Houston, who is from Atlanta, lives in LA, and has over 20 years of experience to help you, brands and companies alike, to really think about cost saving opportunities, being very strategic in your approach, and also how to really think about sustainability on all accounts. As I mentioned earlier, you should have all experts at the table to join you for the conversations from R&D, innovation, design, to even launching in the marketplace, thinking about your recycling facilities. So, guys, as we're wrapping up for today, Michael, share how people can get in contact with you.
Yes, by email, michael.houston@futurebluegroup.com. Also on LinkedIn. And Michael Houston. I forgot the actual rest of that, but you can find me. It wouldn't be too difficult. And through my business with Shower Pouch, theshowerpouch.com, www.
Love it. And guys, you don't have to remember everything that he mentioned. Just go down to the show notes and just hit the links, and you'll be navigated to the showerpouch.com website so you can get your own shower pouch. And then also making sure you follow him directly on LinkedIn to see all the awesome content that he is dropping around his mission, leading to zero waste and a zero carbon future. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to today's episode right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. Make sure you do follow, like, and subscribe to all of our platforms, which you will have down in the show notes for you. And also remember, packaging sustainability is our future. So we'll see you on the next episode.